Hey everybody. So just want to welcome you back this week. And You should have most or all of your assignments back to you. Um, I have a guest speaker this week again, and his name is David Willis. And David, if you don't mind, can you just introduce yourself and just basically I think I know your exact title, but can you give your title if you don't mind?
Sure, sure. So, hello, morning. My name is David Willis. I'm a business reporter at the Asbury Park Press. I've been at the Asbury Park Press now since '95, and before that, I worked at the Courier News since '89. So, I guess I've been with a journalist for over 30 years, or well over 30 years.
And so what Dave's been doing basically is, you know, Dave is a veteran journalist, as he said. He Just to give you a little bit of history here. So Dave is also another friend of mine, and he and I actually went to Rutgers together. We were editors on the Daily Targum, and if I may brag a little bit, we were we were editors during an award-winning period. Well, we won I think it was called the Columbia Scholastic Journalism
Yep.
a couple times. Um, and I always felt like Dave is like the classic gumshoe journalist. He will get down to the bottom of the story if he has to, you know, I don't know, drive 80 miles an hour to get to it. So, but at the same time, Dave's job has also evolved, and actually he's also evolved because of basically what stuff that we've been talking about in class. And that is, again, digital media has been around for like 20, 25 years, but he's had to basically adjust his job to basically make it fit the digital world. And with this assignment that we're doing on data journalism, I thought that he would be a good person to talk to about that, basically like how to, maybe like find stuff on the web, that maybe not be so easily apparent. But I also thought it'd be a good idea for Dave just to talk about what he does on his job, how he goes about doing it, and also just how he interacts with people on the web. So Dave, you're basically a
So,
business consumer journalist, and like some of the stuff you do actually is just that. You actually you talk about things that are actually trending in business, right? And basically, but also things that people may have questions about, you know, things that
um,
maybe not necessarily things they need fixed, like you're not a plumber.
right.
So,
Well, so what I do is I've actually changed a little bit since the last time I've talked to you, Tom. So I'm
oh,
always,
okay.
there's always an evolution going on. So what I do now is I'm a consumer reporter, so I write about consumer issues. So pretty much anything that involves bills or paying for things. So that includes retail. So I cover retail is now one of my primary beats. And my main goal is basically finding out when big businesses are coming into shopping centers and strip centers and all that kind of thing. I have a column called "What's Going There in Monmouth and Ocean Counties." So
Mhm.
basically, if you see an empty space, a storefront in a shopping center, basically my goal is to find out what's going into that place, hopefully before the sign goes up. So that includes, it's not as easy as it sounds, frankly, because these are often things that people don't want to talk about. And landlords don't want to give things up. So you have to really do a lot of gumshoe journalism to find out those things. So it includes, looking at permits and planning board documents and going to town hall and schmoozing with the clerks and all that type of thing to try to find out what's going into all these places. But so anyway, so that's kind of what I do now. I also have a consumer column called Press on Your Side, which is not as much as it used to be. I used to do that twice a week, and now it's kind of occasionally, where I help people with their problems, with their consumer problems. Like I don't know, we're right now, I'm working on one where someone referred their son to a solar panel company. And when you refer someone, you typically get bonus, a fee, I could get $1,000 as a referral fee. This guy's having a hard time getting the referral fee. So I'll call up the company, tell the guy, kind of share his problem, and hopefully they'll give the guy his money. I mean, that's the kind of the gist of it. Those are pretty popular, but what's really popular is this retail stuff. So people really want to know when a burger place is going in. I cover chain restaurants, so we have a whole team of reporters who cover mom and pop restaurants and small restaurants, but I cover chains, and people want to know when the Taco Bell's going in. I mean, it's crazy. They're among these stories are among the top trending stories on the website.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm usually, if I have a story, it's usually in the top 3. I've
Oh,
tracked my metrics I track them pretty heavily. I'm like one of the top subscriber polls for when they want to get subscriptions in the paper, sell subscriptions at the website. So people really want to know about these things. So I serve it up. There's a lot going on. I mean, it's not just that. It's not just big companies like I'm trying to think of I'm just blanking. Like it could be a new Burlington store going in. It could be a new supermarket going in. It could be, when I'm tracking 2 Amazon Fresh supermarkets that are coming into Monmouth County, and they're the Amazon version of a supermarket, essentially grocery store. Those are very popular stories, and people really care about that stuff, and they really want to read about it. So I had to, in those stores, they're in Eatontown and Homedale. They're not confirmed by the company, but I know they're going in there because I've seen the plans for the buildings, for the insides of the buildings.
So you'll see. I'm sorry, Dave. You'll see like what? You'll see like something like coming in or something like that, or you'll
Yeah,
see like
well, yeah. So
plan?
I have sources who told me back in a year ago or so, whenever it was, hey, guess what's going into that space over there? And I'm like,
Oh, I
what?
see.
And they say, well, it's going to be an Amazon store. I'm like, really? Well, can you tell me on the record? No, I can't tell you on the record. I'm like, okay, well, so then you just start poking around, and you find out that you try to look up the building plans for the building, and when you look at the building plans, you see that there's not a word Amazon on them. But what you do see are the scanning equipment that Amazon has for when you check out, and it's very unique to Amazon. So that's on the plans. That confirmed to me that it was Amazon. Or, the other store, they put up a half of an Amazon facade, just the colors of the facade. So you take a photo of an Amazon store, you look at what they're building there, and you go, that's an Amazon store. It's the same thing.
Right.
So you're able to just confirm this stuff just through reporting. And so I can say definitively that those stores are going in. I don't need anyone to tell me that. I don't do I don't do sources. So I'm not allowed to really use unnamed sources for things, because I'm not covering the State House or the White House. I'm writing about stores, and that's kind of silly to use unnamed sources for that stuff.
Right.
So I just try to find it. I try to find it through however I can get it. As I said, town hall, mayors. I have I've developed sources in the commercial real estate community, and hopefully that they can lead me to things. I mean, they usually can't talk on the record, but they can lead me to where I need to go sometimes. They can tell me, hey, I think something was filed with the planning board. So I go look for that, or maybe something was approved, last month. I didn't know about it. No one wrote about it, but it just kind of slipped under the radar, and I could pull the documents, and I don't need anyone to talk to me. But those stories are very popular. So in order to do that, I formed a Facebook group on Facebook called What's Going There, Monmouth Ocean Counties. It's got 15,000 members on it now, and it's targeted only towards talking about commercial real estate. And as I say, retail comings and goings. So when something closes, when something's coming. So I have a core group of and that's all they talk about. So there's nothing else in the group. I don't allow any kind of chat. I mean, any kind of like news
Right.
posts. I allow other news agents, news groups, news companies to post their stories if they want to in my group. But it has to be on topic, commercial real estate. So they just can't post their murder story or their crime story. And people talk about this stuff and they tell me what they see. So I cover from Matawan, which is about exit 120, all the way down to Little Lake Harbor. And I cover it's mostly corridors, Route 9, Route 72 in Southern Ocean County, Route 35. Anyway, I mean, huge, long distances of space, big space. So I need people to tell me stuff. So I use the Facebook group is there and people tell me stuff. I mean, they post, they give me tips. Hey, this is coming in here. I've been trying to think of that burger chain. It's killer. I just don't remember it. Not Smash Burger, but it's like really, really popular. They'll tell me when a Smash Burger type place is coming in.
Right.
And I'll have it first. So I'm very, very, very competitive. So my goal is to smash the competitors with this stuff because they will write about it later.
They will.
Because
NJ.com.
It's all trend. NJ.com, Patch. It's all very trending. This is trending content that pulls people into the website. And for some stuff, people will even care about it enough to buy a subscription to the website to read it.
That's great.
So
that's interesting you mentioned that because we've had a couple of stories we've done where we've sought information, and what we did was we created a discussion point, which is very similar to what you've done basically. And they basically just people feed information. One of the stories we did was crime in the Rutgers campus area, and actually we actually had the students had to put on their resident hat, not the reporter hat, and basically contribute.
Right.
And we actually got some really interesting points of view on that. So, and also the anecdotes. So
yeah, I mean, people are very interested and they're willing to talk and they're willing to share things. I mean, I don't have 15,000 people talking at once, but I do have like a core group. I would think of about 100 people who tip me off on stuff, and I interact with them online live. So, they might chat with me. I used to be kind of timid about talking and posting on the internet.
yeah.
But now I'm kind of seen as an expert. So they try to say, hey, I hear McDonald's is going into the shopping center over here. Not McDonald's, Starbucks. Can you check that out for me? And I check it out. I mean, everything I check out might be a story, so I don't mind doing that. I mean, it's my job. So no, that Starbucks is at this point isn't going in. Maybe the lease isn't signed yet. I mean, so yeah.
What
So
you'll get an off the record tip, I guess, typically, or back on something on background.
Sure.
And then what you'll do is, like we've talked about this before, is that the best thing about off the record or whatever, or even getting something on background, and you have your own policy or a company policy that says you have to get things on the record, is
right.
You take that information, you get it on the record.
Right. I mean, that's what I do. So I essentially get tips on the record.
Right.
Get them on the record somehow, or they didn't happen. Or it's possible. I mean, people hear stuff all the time, and especially on Facebook and some of these Facebook community groups, it's like crazy, hey, or wishes, like someone wishes this big space over here on 36 would become a Christmas tree shops or something, and that kind of follows. Oh, I hear this is going on. I hear this is going on. Like they were going to make a veterinary hospital. The rumor was a veterinary hospital was going into a Kmart. And that was a rumor with a little bit of truth in it, because they had actually approached the town and said, hey, we're thinking about putting a vet hospital in. But it never went anywhere. But as far as you couldn't convince the town, some people, that it wasn't going to go there. Right. And people were convinced of it because there was a rumor about it. But what happened was it was never more than just like a, hey, what do you think? And it turned out there was a Harley Davidson dealership right next door. and Harley Davidson, motorcycles and dogs just don't get along, right? So it's very noisy. And so that was never going to be a vet place.
Right.
So my job is really to know where all the empty spaces are in my area and have a sense of where everything is. And I track projects all over the place, and track vacancies. And you're talking about the web. I use the web all the time. I mean, there's a lot of these listings. There's there's realtor.com if you want to buy a house, but there are also a host of websites for commercial real estate properties, or shopping centers. A broker will put something up and they'll have a nice little picture of it and a design of it, and they'll put all their potential leases in there. Sometimes they're fake. Sometimes they put stores up like Aldi just to kind of gin up interest.
Yeah.
So Aldi's not going in there. So you have to really know your beat and do your reporting so you don't get taken down some rabbit hole by some marketer who wants to gin up his property,
Right.
by posting fake
The vet. Yeah.
fake tenants.
That was actually my question. Like, how was, besides the Facebook group, how has the web been useful in terms of like getting information? Maybe even like, can you get like some of these records on the web? I mean, it's just so much that's available on the web now as opposed
Yeah.
to what it used to be. So
Yeah, I mean, but like everything else on the web, it starts where you're going. It gives
Right.
you an avenue to go places. But what you need to do is you need to do your reporting afterwards. So you can't just take what's on the web, unless it's some some public record
Right.
source, like a bill, or in the legislature or something, public records that you can find on municipal websites like planning to board documents and proposals. But when you're out there in the web, you got to really start. So I would take something like a listing for commercial real estate property, and then call up the broker, call up the broker's boss, talk to the company involved, go to the property.
Right.
And I just did one yesterday, and I went out to the property, and there was a big sign that says "coming soon," and that made it easy. So
Right.
you're just confirming everything, because there's nothing worse than when you have a column called "What's Going There" in Monmouth and Ocean counties. You write a story, and it doesn't get there.
Yeah.
It's absolute worst. And everything I do is to make sure that doesn't happen.
Do you look at it like an abandoned building perhaps, and even like say like what's going there?
Sure. So for instance, there's a lot of, if you know through 36, there's a lot of a big old gross. There's a Bradley's up there that's been vacant for years.
This, by the way, people, just in case you don't know, he's talking about the area of New Jersey. It's called, basically, it's considered kind of the Jersey Shore. Those of you who don't live in New Jersey.
Oh yeah, right.
It's like the Middletown area. It's northern Jersey Shore. So.
Yeah, the Bay Shore, essentially non-ocean front.
Right.
So it's Raritan Bay, Sandy Hook Bay, but there's a highway that essentially goes from the Garden State Parkway all the way to Sandy Hook, and that is littered with kind of junky, abandoned buildings. Not abandoned, but empty, rundown, and it's a low economic area. There are a lot of people who live around there, but just not enough to attract a big business, unfortunately. So I do write about those buildings, and especially when something's going into them. There's, for instance, a ShopRite, a store that was emptied out, and they moved to moved into a different building, and it's been vacant for several years, and now it's going to be a storage place, self-storage. But it beats a weedy, disgusting, parking lot, and so that was kind of interesting. People wished for big things.
Right.
There's another big building that people want filled. It used to be a Bradley's, but they don't know that. Well, some do, but most don't. That Stop and Shop rents that building empty.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so the landlord doesn't need to fill it because someone's paying the rent, and the reason someone's paying the rent is because Stop and Shop doesn't want a competitor in that building.
Oh, wow.
So this is the kind of stuff that goes on And it's the kind of stuff you really only find out through reporting and knowing your community.
You know, it's funny, like whenever I think of abandoned buildings, I always think of this area. I couldn't imagine. I don't know. I couldn't imagine anything going in there anytime soon. But I grew up in Point Pleasant, New Jersey, and which, by the way, is also the Jersey Shore. Those of you, I have some students who live out of the country and that sort of thing. Maybe you've seen the TV show. So anyway, I always wondered, like, what was ever going to happen to this one property that it's on Route 70 in Brick, and a long time ago there was a Bradley's in there,
Oh yeah. Oh,
and there was a burger chef in there, and apparently, I'm sure everybody's heard of Bruce Springsteen. He had a line in a song where he talked about Greasy Lake, and apparently, it's not really a lake; it's more of a pond, I guess, but it's behind it. What's it called? I forget what it's called, but that pond there is
Which pond?
yeah, right. And apparently, like, it was called Greasy Lake because of the burger chef, and we used to go there when I was a kid. So I always kind of wondered if, like, I mean, it has like a little bit of history there. I always wondered if something would happen there, but it's really like in a really bad position.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Tom, I can tell you right now that that's going to be an Aldi's.
Oh, is it really?
There's a whole shopping center.
How
It
about
actually, there's actually a sportsplex, one of these sports places where you go and you practice all your sports.
Yeah, right.
And you have games and fields and stuff. There's going to be that
Oh, wow.
in the back, and then there's
That's
going to be in the
amazing.
front. There's going to be an Aldi and some other retail. I forget. So I cover the retail part. The brick reporter covers the back part. And the
Oh,
rest.
cool. Great.
So yeah, so there you go. So that's the kind of stuff I do. And
How'd you
and
find that out? How'd you find that out?
well, that was through a long process. So actually, Brick owned that property. They foreclosed on that property.
Okay.
It became a food town after
That's
Brad
right, it was a
became a
food
food
town.
town. Then the town took it over. It's been an area in need of redevelopment. So they worked with a developer to figure out the rest of it. It's taken years. M&M Realty out of South Plainfield, Edgewood
Yeah.
Properties, which you probably have heard about in your reporting background. So yeah, so it's a very public process. So I mean, I just talked to the commercial broker on that property a couple of weeks ago, and he kind of gave me an update. But that's just been out in the public in the community there for years. I've just
Yeah.
churning and working. So anyway, that's you got a little news today.
All right. So yeah, so kind of bottom line here is that, like, and this actually really deals with not just our new assignment, but one of our last assignments, and that is, you just can't, like, rely on like one source of information, whether it's the web or like a person or whatever, to get your information. You need like layers, to basically get the most obtainable version of truth. You need to have like different perspectives and everything. So I mean, if you don't mind, Dave, I'm going to actually like show something here. Share the
Yeah.
screen. So we have this assignment where we're going to be I've asked them to talk about trending. I thought this is something that's really become a big thing. I used to do a lot of patch, basically looking at like trending issues, and Rutgers raises tuition just about every year, it seems like. So I asked the class to to basically look at the last 5 years. I won't say what years because I'm actually trying to make this a timeless video, but anyway, the last 5 years basically, and like identify how many times or each time Rutgers has raised tuition in the last 5 years. So I actually said, one of the best places to start is actually the web, like you were saying. That's actually like a good marker. And actually, like, if you actually go to Google, sometimes it just starts with Google, right?
Mhm.
You go to Google, well, it's right there. You go to Rutgers, let's say you want to find out Rutgers tuition from a certain year. So, I mean, if you want to find out from a bunch of years, you could just do Rutgers tuition increase. But if you do, let's say I wanted to find it out from like 2018, okay? So I would do Rutgers tuition 2018. And actually what you'll typically see is you'll see a source like this, but you want to make sure you go to a source that actually is like a legit source, like something that actually like, will,
Well, actually, Tommy, if you just go down a little bit, you just had, I think you just had one.
I was
right
actually,
there.
there was actually a news
There was
release.
actually, there's like, oh, the news release. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you could go to a,
Like, there's
I'm
an
fine with you
emission.
guys going to a, a something that's already been published. Oh,
Oops.
the Bergen record site is
Oops.
down for maintenance. What's going on here?
That's my company. Okay.
Well, there's Patch.
Right there, right up a little bit higher.
There you go.
Right up, right there. What's that?
Oh, there we go.
Tuition and fees.
Yeah. This reports on essentially the current tuition and fees, I think it is.
Yeah.
And which, by the way, again, like if you're seeing this video like a couple years from now, this is like when I recorded it. There's actually what they did was they did a good job of actually good job. I mean, they have to do this. They did a good job of basically actually writing about or releasing information on their news site, and they put it on a thing called Rutgers Today. Whoops, I'm actually it's not actually coming up right away, which is just weird. If you just put in Rutgers tuition, maybe to put a Rutgers tuition increase, maybe. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, yeah, there you
So
go.
yeah, so then this is actually for this year that I'm doing. This is for the 2021-22 year, and then you can get it right from the horse's mouth right here. This is the if you wanted to look past 5 years, what you could do is, and actually I demonstrated this in my last video, they actually have, these places actually have essentially libraries essentially of information. So you go to the search engine on their site, and yeah, if this thing will scroll down, it's not scrolling down. Anyway, okay. It's not scrolling down. Anyway, well, anyway, if you actually put in Rutgers tuition, like I said, in tuition increase, you will get at least a couple of them in a Google search. And actually you can find all of them through the way I've demonstrated before, just by basically going through the search function on their site. And then of course you can also go to the news. If you have difficulty finding that, you can actually go to the news places the news sites themselves, and just basically make sure that you attribute it to the news site. Somebody brought up this place. I'm not sure how legit some of these sites are. College Tuition Compare. I would much rather go with something that's actually much more official, like NJ.com, or like Dave said, Gannett, AP, Asbury Park Press. NorthJersey.com is also part of Gannett. It's Bergen Record.
I mean,
Yeah.
Tom, what I've often done, if I see something in a news story, and I don't like attributing to other news sources, just in general, but what I do is I search for the term that's in the story. So maybe if the figure is there, you can just try to confirm it yourself by finding whatever source the reporter used, because it's probably online. It probably found it online.
And this one is so public because Rutgers is a state institution that,
Yep.
I mean, they basically almost have to tell you everything, So, and by the way, I actually did find the 2018 increase just by doing this. Rutgers tuition increase 2018.
Yeah, exactly. And just do it every year.
Yeah, and then there's the release right there.
Right,
So,
exactly.
there it is. And then, as I also explained, they'll provide their own reasons for why, why the tuition's going up. And of course, actually, the 1 year, I'm giving away hints here, so hopefully you're watching this whole video. This was the 1 year they didn't do it. I think it was during the COVID era. Oh no, that's not it actually. Well,
But 2020 with 20.
yeah, it should be I should actually do the actual year, which would be 2020,
2021.
like that. Yeah, they froze tuition. Well, no, that's not it. But anyway, it's in here. So
Oh, yeah, right there. It's right there, Tom.
oh, there we
Right
go.
above. No, keep going up.
Over here?
There, right there. Yeah.
Oh,
You go.
freeze, duh. Okay. I have to have an editor for myself.
Yeah.
And that's Dave. So there you go. That's the 1 year they within this period of time, they didn't raise tuition. So, that does happen too. So anyway, and then, but as we talked about, it's actually important to get like layers of information. So in this particular case, ideally, we'd like you to like maybe go out, and go out and interview people at the university to like try to get more information. Like Dave said, maybe try to do some digging, because maybe it's not exactly like what they're saying it is. Maybe you go interview state officials. Maybe it has something to do with like the funding they get every year from the state budget. But then you also want to like make sure that like you get people who actually live at the who actually go to the college and actually get information, and I'm sorry, who actually pay for this, and you want to get their opinions on it too, which is why I asked you guys also to get the put your reporter, sorry, your student hat on, and also provide some information about like, hey, look, even though they froze it one year, it's still going up in a way that's actually like, you know, maybe not very affordable. Or in this particular case, I had one student who said, like, I think it's quite fair. So, because, hey, costs go up, there's inflation, there's everything else, so that actually adds more layers to the story. It makes it like a fuller story. So basically, like what the theme of everything here is basically like whether it's on the web or whether it's in a town hall or whether it's a source or something, you can't just rely on like one person's word for it. You just can't rely on like one website's word for it. You have to actually like dig, and you have to make sure that that person or that website has credibility or something. So, yeah, am I right about that, Dave?
Correct.
And especially like in your field, you actually have to do a little bit more than go beyond the websites, as you said. You actually have to like, go to you actually have to go to like, actually have to like leave the office or something like that sometimes.
Yeah. Well, you can actually go take a look. It's
Yeah,
probably the best way of doing it. Plus, we didn't really mention this, but I got to take my own photos too, Tom.
that's right.
So I have to take my own photos in many cases. So I have to actually have to go out. There's not a lot of photographers these days, and there's nothing. I have been recently kind of asking photographers to take real estate shots, which is essentially just a photo outside the building, because
Like a stock photo kind of thing. Yeah.
stock photo, yeah, because you gotta have a photo of what it looks like. But usually I go out and do a whole round of them. If I'm working on, I know I'm working on usually 5 stories at once. So I go out and take all the photos on one afternoon, drive around, and but yes, I got to take my own photos. So I have to actually get to go out and look myself.
And that actually speaks to like what we've been doing. I typically teach 2 classes. I teach writing for media, which is essentially the beginner reporting course, and then I teach digital media, which is like the next step. And what I talk about is something I invented. It's a sports fan thing here. You have to be a 5-tool player now, and I always say that's reporter. You have to be an editor. You have to be a self-editor now, because a lot of copy desks are not as big as they used to be, or not even like existing. At Patch, we didn't even really basically even have one. And then the next 2 are kind of similar, but it's video and photography. Basically, like a lot of photos are taken right off your iPhone. We've had snowstorms. I've had to like, do screenshots of New Jersey Turnpike cams of traffic jams on the road. And then the 5th one is graphics, which doesn't necessarily mean like you have to actually like build the graphic or something like that, but you have to, sometimes it's important, especially like we've done this in weather stories, is actually like getting like, weather maps, things like that might show like a storm is coming or something. So that's essentially a graphic, and a lot of times those things are made for you.
So I did a story recently about warehouse development in our area, big 1 million square foot warehouses, and I did a graphic, a Google map, and I had I think I had 8 points, 8 coming, 8 under construction.
That's right.
Big warehouses. And you put those on the map, you pop that sucker in the story, and you get a nice note from your editor saying, the editor of the paper saying how much they love that.
Yep.
So, and Tom, you forgot a few other things. SEO. You got to do your own SEO. I'm very lucky because I have an editor who I've been with for 20 years. So he's a better headline writer than I am, and so he just does it. But most reporters here have to do their own headlines. They
Yeah.
have to do their own SEO. They got to look at Google Trends. They got to do all this stuff that would just unimaginable when I
You
first started.
talk about search engine optimization, by the way, guys. That's
Correct.
where like you have to make sure that like when you do actually do your own headline now, which is part of the editor tool number 2.
Right.
And a lot of times you have to make sure that you use words that you know are going to be searched for on the web or on social media.
Right. So that's stuff I never would have thought about. I mean, never would have thought about when I started this business.
Exactly.
And I actually would think that it wasn't my work. I mean, that's someone else's job. It's not mine. And while I've never really been the type to just refuse, because I'm a reporter, I can't really refuse much, but I would almost say, no, I'm not doing that. I mean, and also, I also go out and talk to people. So I'm doing what I'm doing. I've been talking in Tom's classes for many years, but I also talk in the community and talk about the paper, talk about my job. I've talked in front of, senior groups and about consumer scams, all sorts of things that just never was I would consider to be a reporter's job. And I talk about how people should subscribe to the paper. So now I have to be a pitch man for my own stories and get people to subscribe. And
That's
I'm
right.
not judged by it. I don't get my raise by it, but it's just an assumption that that's part of what I do. And
That's
why
right.
not? I mean, if I made a great sandwich, I'd want people to eat my sandwiches, right? So if I write a great story, I want people to read my stories. I want people to subscribe to my paper. So I shouldn't be ashamed or worried about being my biggest advocate, and I'm my biggest advocate. So I got to sell myself. That keeps me relevant in the community, and it keeps me relevant in the eyes of my employer. And it's in a business that is shrinking, that's important.
Exactly. I always think about like way back in the old days, the best thing about not writing a headlines is that if like they wrote a bad headline, I could always say, I don't write the headlines.
You can still say that, Tom.
Yeah.
It works. It still
Still work. Yeah.
it still works. But yeah, you're right. Yeah. And you wouldn't really but also it's most likely that the copy editor who would write your headline now probably might not have read the story all the way through.
That's right.
And they might not have caught all the typos in it.
That's right.
Because there's when there used to be 10 copy editors putting the paper together or the website together, there's only one now. And it's that drastic. And so you really need to make sure you have clean copy. Read it over, read it out loud. Literally read it out loud is probably the best way of copy editing yourself, because that means you read every word.
Self-edit. Yep.
So and it's important. I've had mistakes because I make typos. I've had typos in the lead. I mean, I've had typos in the third word because I just glanced right over it when I read it, when I filed it. My copy editor or whoever's editing my copy, maybe they edited it with the arrow key, putting the arrow keys down, and they just blew right past it up on the website. Big misspelling of the third word.
Okay.
And it happens, but it's embarrassing.
Dave, I really appreciate this. I know you got to go. I know we don't have a lot of time. If you don't mind just like hanging out for a second, I'm going to stop recording, but
Sure.
And I'm also going to like talk to the class separately. So Dave, really, I appreciate this. Thank you very much.
You got it.
And class, we'll be talking in a bit. Just give me a sec. All right, everybody, that was Dave Willis. So anyway, I will be talking to you. And like I said, this relates to the data journalist assignment, but also just dealing with, digging for information a little bit, which is important, making sure that you have sources, making sure you connect the sources, even if those sources are, websites or something like that, making sure the sources are legit. Some of you have asked me like, is this a good website to go to? Well, that's why you have an editor. That's why it's a good idea to actually go to your editor and ask that question. Is it actually a good website? Because sometimes those websites will actually like lift information from official sites, which are not supposed to do. So, all right. So I will be talking to you guys. Thanks very much.